a volume game. But you know what? Screw basketball. The Patriots, how about this, Pete? How about this? This is America's worst freaking nightmare. Can you believe that the freaking Patriots are going to the Super Bowl again? Quicker faster than any other team.
I can because of Mike Vrabel. I mean, I bought in kind of like midway through the season, and it kind of occurred to me, rational thinking is, this guy is that good of a coach. And he showed us a body of work that told us that. But for whatever reason, I almost dismissed it, right? But now here he is. I think it's what he's doing is historic, right? But yeah, you're the expert. What are your thoughts about this? As far as a vibe for somebody who's connected to the organization and connected to Vrabel, what does this do for you internally? Does it bring about joy?
I mean, it's just like, listen, it was one of those things where I don't know if joy is the word I would use, because I've been so far removed from the team, but I want them to succeed because I do the pregame show, the postgame show, so I cover them all the time. I'm just really, I guess, happy for them. I'm happy for the Crafts, the organization, the players. I'm happy for Mike Vrabel, his coaching staff, because you're right. This is historic. And we were running some little stats at the end of our postgame show during the snowstorm up here. And whenever a stat line starts with the first time ever in NFL history, right? Something good's about to come up, right? And it was about how poorly they had played, how bad their record was in the last 2 years, only 8 wins in 2 years, and how they're now in the Super Bowl. To me, and I don't think this is an exaggeration. I don't think it is. I think this is easily, it's just, if you just look at football, maybe all sports, the greatest 1-year turnaround in the history of the NFL. Not only what the Jacksonville Jaguars did was pretty cool. Liam Cohen did a great job. They were bounced in the first round. What the Chicago Bears did with Ben Johnson, that was pretty unbelievable. They still could have won that game, but they got bounced against the Rams. They couldn't close it out. The Patriots, on the other hand, were in similar situations to both those teams, had an unbelievably just wasteland of wins. They just couldn't get their act together. And then Kraft, fired Maye, one of his favorite players of all time. And, to his words said he had to pay money for 25 coaches. He had to pay that note on all those coaches that he fired. I don't see how it isn't one of the best. I just don't. And it's just remarkable to me. And they've hit on a lot of things: drafts, free agents, old players, new players, coaching staff. They've hit on everything.
What's the number one thing that they hit on that you think catapulted them into this game? Because I think you're right. They have engineered the greatest turnaround ever because you're playing in the Super Bowl. It's not one of those deals where your team was 1-16 and now you made the playoffs, and that's terrific. You're playing in the Super Bowl. But what's the number one thing you think?
So wait, if I take the coach out, should I include the coach? Because I honestly think the biggest adjustment,
include the coach. Yeah,
I think the biggest catalyst is the coach. Every successful organization, and I do a whole thing on this, a final presentation with one of the classes I teach at Bryant University. I tell the kids, you got to pick a team that either has that identifies as organizational success or dysfunction, right? And I don't let them take the Patriots. But the organizational success, it always starts at the top. It starts at the top. It's like the holy trinity of sports organization success: ownership, management, coaching. And they have it. And I would say Elliot Wolf, who's kind of in the background, who's basically the GM, isn't getting enough credit because he helped bring all those free agents in. He helped bring in Milton Williams. He helped bring in Spillane. He helped, Carlton Davis the second. He brought all those guys in. He was the one who drafted Drake May when Gerard Mayo was the coach. But I still think ultimately you got to have players. They got them. I think underrated players. And then the coach has to somehow convince the players that he's worth listening to. I can't drive that home enough. I've been in so many meetings. Hell, I was sitting down with Joe Gibbs when I was a free agent. I was like, I'm playing for the Washington Redskins, the then Washington Redskins. And I was like, wow, what a treat. I go from Bill Belichick, I go from Mike Holmgren to Bill Belichick, and now I'm sitting in the front row with Joe Gibbs. I will tell you this, and people who love the Commanders are going to hate me for this. Gibbs was the worst. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He was all over the place. Nothing made sense. He was changing his mind left and right. There was no consistency. No, there wasn't a player on the team that was held to be that had to be accountable for the way they acted, the way they behaved. It was insane. So when I see this, I look at it starting with the coach, and then of course you got to have good players, but you got to convince the players, to listen to you. And I think the other thing and I'll shut up after this, Pete.
No, this is great.
Vrabel is such a good game manager. He is, that to me is ultimately the difference. Because I could say Mike Macdonald is a great motivator, right? He motivates by empowering and encouraging. Like he's got a unique trait with like Dan Campbell, all these guys, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson. I don't think any of them are as skilled at Mike Vrabel when it comes to situational football decisions. And I got a bunch of examples, but but he is on point on what has to happen, how it has to happen, how fast or how slow. And then the team, which is even a harder part than convincing them to trust you, the team learns those situations. So while they're in that situation in the huddle, they all know what has to happen. So they're all on the same page, right? I'd look at the Seattle Seahawks game, like Tariq Woolen, the cornerback who had the taunting penalty at the end of the game. What a dope. Unbelievable. Like
I was thinking, Christian, I was like, how does that happen? But then I've never been in that position. So you can answer that question. How the hell does that happen? And what's the accountability like for that dude?
Well, listen, it's real simple, Pete. It's you're selfish. You rather grandstand on your own for your own personal gain and then have no idea how it affects the entire team. Like that was a huge play that he made. And it was a 3rd and 12. They stay on the field. And as fate would have it, the very next play, they go deep. Puka Nacua gets a touchdown. He deserved it. That's what I would say. He'll never do it again. He'll never do it again. And thank God, like that's a lesson learned. And I guarantee you, this is what Mike will do. Guarantee. We won't hear about it until after they win the Super Bowl or if they win the Super Bowl. The players will sit there and say, you know what? Vrabel every Friday, every Thursday puts up examples of other players around the league or in college, right, that do stupid things that affect the team. He will absolutely drive that into your head. And then if you do it, it's not really him that shames you and yells at you. It's the locker room that says, what the hell are you doing? So I think that is, in a big nutshell, to kind of tie it in a bow, Pete, I think that's ultimately the biggest difference this year as opposed to last year and other teams, quite frankly.
Did you see anything in Vrabel when you were playing with him that told you that he would be this elite of a leader and a coach? I mean, to be able to pull off something that you and I are agreeing on, it's probably the best turnaround in the history of pro football.
Other than his snarkiness and his passive aggressive mood sometimes, other than that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, everybody there's a couple guys that were on the teams that I were on that you just knew, like Larry Izzo was a special teams guy. We all knew that he was going to be a coach, and he's a special teams coach now in the league. And we knew Pete, we knew that Mike was one of those guys because I think first of all, I think you have to kind of accept the lifestyle of a coach. And I think people don't understand, like Mike Macdonald just talked about, going home early so he could see his kid for 30 minutes before he went to bed. That's the lifestyle. I wanted nothing to do with that. I would love to mentor young men and teach them, but I would like to have a family and see my family, watch my kids grow up and go to their games. Coaching in the NFL and in college, it doesn't provide that ability. So that, one, you have to have that. Two, you just have to understand, how organizations are built, how to motivate players. You have to understand offense and defense. You have to understand every position. You have to understand special teams. I mean, he was on punt team almost his whole career with the Patriots, and during scout team, he was playing safety. He was playing linebacker. It was so annoying, and when he was doing it, because when he would screw up a play, like he would just giggle, and we would just be like, well, it's our fault for letting him get away with it, so it kept everybody on their toes. And, and I'm just really, to be honest with you, I'm just really happy for him. It's just such an unbelievable accomplishment.
What have you seen about Drake Maye, like that has enabled him to kind of break through to this other side now, where he's the youngest guy to ever start a Super Bowl? We were talking about it before we got to you. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Dan Marino, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger. Those are the other guys in that category as the youngest quarterbacks to start a Super Bowl. That would lead me to believe that this guy's in it for the long run, right? He's going to be in our lives for a very long time as a very special quarterback. What about him to you has put him in this rare air?
Well, I'll say I'll take out the obvious, which is his arm strength, his accuracy on the deep ball, his ability to run. I would even take out his knowledge of the game, which I think has been fast tracked. I think he's got a real high football IQ. My nickname for him is No Emo. No emotion. No emo. He's just steady. And I will say,
in the world of so much emo, we finally get somebody who's no emo.
No emo. Brady, just the opposite. Fiery, loud, abrasive, like in your face, right? Competitive. But so is Drake. And I will say the thing that makes him, it's the intangibles to me, honestly, which I think takes a good player to like a great player to a Hall of Famer. And I think the thing in every single playoff game so far, he hasn't played great in the postseason for one reason or another, whether it be the Chargers defense, the Houston Texans defense, or the elements in the situation, last night against the Denver Broncos. But when they need a play, he makes the play. Like he just makes it. It's uncanny. It doesn't matter. He's just not affected by anything else that happens. He's recognizing the situations. He's understanding what he needs to do. He takes the call in for the offensive coordinator, and then he just works it the best way he can. And there's examples. There's the flea flicker to Matt Collins, which I thought was an unbelievable throw because he got hammered. There was the last play of the game where it was a bootleg. Right? Like they had the courage to call that play. I don't think it would have mattered if he didn't get it, but he barely got there. And every single time they need a play, like he gets it. It's just, that's what I think makes him different. And, and I tell my daughter this when she's playing hoops, you can't let any of those other plays like affect the next shot because all those other shots are irrelevant when it comes to the last 30 seconds of the game. Like, I don't care if you make any of those shots. Can you make the shot that wins it? Like, can you slow everything down? Can you focus? Can you understand the situation and not flinch? And that's Drake Maye all day long. Look at his post-game press conference. I thought the dude was like not happy. I was like, this guy is the same whether it's a loss against the Raiders or if it's a win in the AFC Championship with the Denver Broncos. It's amazing.
Yeah. What about his, like, and I love when you mention that because you talk about guys that make winning plays, kind of cliche, but even the subtle stiff arm that enabled him to get that first down against a much bigger player who had the angle and the speed on him, and he still got the first down. Like in a game of inches, he finds a way to get those extra inches, which leads me to a question that sucks, but I have to ask it. Do you see similarities between a young Tom Brady? You joined the Patriots after they won that first Super Bowl, right? So the comparisons there's going to be made, and I got you here, so I'm going to ask you because you were there. Like, do you see anything similar as far as body language, the way they comport themselves, the way that he's played so far at such a young age in so many big situations?
Yeah, it's almost it's not even fair to do it and put him in that situation, but I'll do it anyways. The one thing I would say, because I joined the team after Brady's first year, actually the first Super Bowl. It was basically his third year in the league. So he wasn't really Tom Brady yet. And I've been covering him his entire career. So I would say the thing that stands out to me, one, in no particular order, okay? One, his football IQ, his situational awareness, his emotional intelligence. They're different. Brady's fiery, right? But and Drake is a little bit composed. I think they're how they are attached to the locker room. Because the one thing I thought was the best part about Brady, and I still think it is true today, is that with all his celebrity, with all his achievements, with all his accomplishments, he was still just Brady. Like when he walked in the locker room, there was no arrogance, there was no entitlement. He was easily just assimilated with everybody, not just the guys that he would throw to, not just one set of friends. He was able to sit down and talk with everybody. Like if we were eating at a cafeteria, in breakfast or lunch or dinner or whatever, he'd sit everywhere. And when I saw Brady do that, it reminded me of a story I heard about Joe Montana, how he did the exact same thing. So all these great quarterbacks, I think all have similar traits. Now they may look a little different. They may, shine up weird or whatever, but ultimately that to me is such a unique trait from a guy that has to deal with all these different personalities and all these guys from all these different locations, all these different social, economic, situations, to kind of just be one of the guys. You got to be one of the guys, right? You can't roll
I
in.
I heard that about Favre too. Like any faction of the locker room, the actual physical locker room, you guys that are so powerful on the team, especially quarterbacks, like you can hang anywhere. In any section of the locker room, you can go with the guys shooting dice. You can go with the guys listening to country music, and how important that is, right? Like for the whole team to get behind the quarterback. All right, last question for you because you're a busy guy, especially today.
Yeah.
What's the one thing going into a Super Bowl that would surprise the regular person that only the player really knows about? Like whether it's a 2-week situation or a 1-week situation, as a player, what is not talked about enough? Maybe some of the stresses or something that happens that the average Joe just doesn't know about.
I think the one thing that I would say that I remember was just like right now you're getting tickets. Right now, who's going? Who can I get tickets from? Like it is who's flying in? Who am I paying for them? Like am I paying for my parents? Or is my brother going? Okay, well, Billy over here, he doesn't have any friends. Can I buy his tickets off him? And then you have people that will still go to the side of the location hoping to get tickets, and they're literally calling you the day of the game. Like having that handled early is probably the one advice I would give both teams. Handle your ticket situation and then hand it to somebody else and say, nobody ever talked to me about it again. That to me is ultimately the biggest distraction easily that nobody talks about. What a pain in the ass that is, trying to find a way to have all your friends and everybody that meant something to you kind of take part in this experience, right? Because they were along for the ride also. So now you want to reward them and want to make it easy for them. But that'll go down to the end, right before kickoff. That's the biggest issue. That's the biggest pain in the butt, I would say, dealing with the Super Bowl.
You better get your stuff together, dude, because you're going to get pulled in every which way when you get to Santa Clara, because the former Seahawk and Patriot is going to be in high demand. So, dude, I appreciate you taking any time this morning to chop it up with us and give us this awesome insight. Christian Fauria, man. Appreciate it, dude.
It's always fun, Pete. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Christian Fauria is the man. I mean, he's proven to be an even better dude than he is analyst, and that seems pretty tough, too, because he does a great job breaking it down. I love what he said about Vrabel.